Hey there, race fans. It's Race Day Top 5 with me, Frank 5. Watkins Glen. It is the super speedway of road course racing where the speeds are high. You got to be smart on the brakes, especially when it comes to the inner loop, the carousel, and that sharp right-hander into turn one. We saw obviously a lot of speed yesterday on this fast super speedway road course track. At the end of the day, one of the most legendary numbers returns to victory lane for the first time in 20 plus years at the Glen. Let's get into all that went down at the Glen. Number 1, William Byron. Willie B, baby. He is having one hell of a year as he captured his 5th win of the season, winning yesterday's GoBowling.com at the Glen, holding off Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, AJ Allmendinger, and Ty Gibbs for the victory. William Byron was so strong yesterday, like so strong. Started in the front on the front row of the race alongside Denny Hamlin, and really stayed inside the top 3 from the majority of the race. He fell back to as low as 3rd at one point, then he worked his way up to 2nd, then he took the lead on an ensuing set of green flag pit stops when a couple guys had problems, particularly one of our contenders had a lot of penalties, and we'll get into that later, but he also had good pace in the car. The 24 was just on rails yesterday. Under the long green flag runs, nobody had anything for William Byron with the gap that he had. He was so strong yesterday. Even when we had that one caution in the race, the lone caution of the day, he was unbelievably fast, especially on the restart where he was able to get the lead and just take off without any pressure from behind. We had no cautions that set up a late race restart at any point whatsoever. The 24 car was just so strong, was able to maneuver through traffic without any incident or any holdback whatsoever. He was able to get his 5th win of the season. It's the first time that the 24 car has won at Watkins Glen since Jeff Gordon did it back in 2001, and that year Jeff Gordon won the championship. So maybe William Byron, the first driver to win in the 24th at the Glen since Gordon gets in the championship later this year. Time will tell, but a remarkable performance by Byron. His first career road course victory. He's been good on road course in years past, but hadn't been able to put it together when it mattered the most. And if you remember back to last week in Indianapolis, what happened to them on Saturday during pre-qualifying and practice inspection? He failed 3 times and wasn't able to qualify and had to serve a pass-through at the start of the race. Well, he overcame all that and was able to fly his way all the way back up through the field into the top 15. It was a very remarkable drive for Byron. If he didn't have that pre-qualifying inspection failure, then he probably could have been a contender for the victory last weekend. But we've seen the maturity and growth of William Byron and Rudy Fugle together as a duo. They've done very well this year. Getting into the playoffs with just one race left in the regular season, there's no doubt about that they are one of the top 3 drivers entering these playoffs. Can they keep the momentum going when we get ready for the playoffs at Darlington? That remains to be seen. But nonetheless, remarkable performance by Byron and the 24 team yesterday at the Glen. So hats off to them, especially with the big hat he likes to celebrate with. Number 2, Hamlin, runner-up at Watkins Glen. Hamlin was really strong yesterday, Denny Hamlin I'm talking about, as he started on the pole for the race and seemed to have speed in the race car. But then after a couple of laps into the opening, he started to fade a little bit. But then he picked up some pace back up because it seemed like he finally got temperature in his tires and was able to finally, learn, the pros of the track and basically learn where his car needed to run at most of the point and basically nail the braking zones. But they had good pace to stay in the top 5 yesterday. Hamlin did have a good race car, put together his best performance on the road courses in the next-gen car since we started this car. Because let's face it, folks, Denny Hamlin on road course with the next-gen car has been hit or miss, and it's been a struggle for them. Sometimes they qualify well, but they don't run well. But then we come to race day, they maybe run well, but they don't finish well because of some unfortunate circumstances late in the race. But he put in a solid performance yesterday, the best of the Gibbs cars, even though 3 out of the 4 cars were inside the top 5 at the end of the day. They all had very good race cars yesterday. Not just Hamlin, but his teammates Bell and Gibbs. Even Martin Truex, from where he started, he was able to benefit from that caution in the middle of the race and get up inside the top 10. It was a great day for the Gibbs Racing organization. But at the end of the day, Hamlin was the runner-up to the 24 car come the checkered flag. Number 3, Allmendinger with a top 5 finish. AJ Allmendinger had a rough weekend last week in Indianapolis, a racetrack that I expected him to qualify well and run up front. What happened? They didn't qualify well. They started moving up through the field, and then they had the contact with Ryan Blaney, and he never overcame that and just struggled the rest of the race. This weekend, however, Watkins Glen, a track where he's been very successful at, and of course, this is the track where he got his first career Cup win 7 years ago, back in 2014. No, wait, not 7 years ago. 9 years ago. My apologies. 9 years ago, AJ Allmendinger got his first career cup win at this track, driving for JTG Doherty Racing. This weekend for Colleague Racing, they put together a good showing the entire day. I mean, they had good race pace for the most part. I don't think they had winning race pace. He said post-race, if I'd gotten by those Gibbs cars, I might have been able to run down Byron. I quite honestly disagree. But regardless, it was a great performance for the 16 team to get some confidence back on their side because, quite frankly, lately, they've struggled with, results and they haven't been running well at a point where a couple weeks ago, they were close to making the playoffs on points, and then they've been in a free fall ever since. But yesterday was a good way to bounce back from that. And they're heading into next weekend where he's run well in the past at Daytona if he can survive, obviously. But Allmendinger to get a top 5 despite not winning, I think it's good confidence for them after what they dealt with last weekend. Number 4, Elliott. Expected to be the favorite, but has a mistake mid-race. Entering this race, Chase Elliott, one of the most successful road course drivers, and pretty much, has the moniker, the road course king, he was expected to be the favorite for this weekend's race. Well, starting off Saturday, they didn't qualify well, qualified in the 15th spot, which he openly admitted that it's really hurting his any chances that he has to, to try to win races is based on how they qualify. But then come race time, they had the pace and speed in their car. They were able to pit ahead of a couple other guys a few laps prior and was able to gain some track position and get his way up to 7th spot. But when you pit a couple laps earlier than everybody else, you tend to fade a little bit later into the run, especially when it goes green. He faded back to 9th. Then he was just a couple laps away from making his pit stop when Alan Gustafson, his crew chief, told him to flip the switch and be prepared to pit in the next 2 to 3 laps. Then he comes to the backstretch and Alan said, get ready to pit this time by. And on the backstretch, Elliott ran out of gas, and that ultimately took him out of the equation for the victory. I mean, he would have needed a caution big time if it wasn't him. He would have needed a caution to get caught back up in this thing because it looked like it was going to be an entire green flag run race. But his running out of gas forced him to stop in the inner loop and ultimately brought out the caution. The bus stop in the inner loop brought out the caution and ultimately was the only caution of the day. And it put him a lap down, and he never got back in the game, ultimately ending with a 32nd place finish. And now facing a must-win situation next weekend at Daytona. It's hard to believe that this guy won the championship 3 years ago in 2020, and this year, obviously, with the broken leg and missing races and the suspension after the incident with Denny Hamlin, the Coke 600, if he doesn't win next weekend, he's out of the playoffs. And I mean, it's hard to believe that, but we'll see what he can do next weekend. But it's been a rough patch for this 9 team this year, especially yesterday when they miscalculated the fuel. I mean, listen, Alan Gustafson is a smart crew chief, and I know the 9 fans have been obviously frustrated with him in the past, but this time they have the right to be. I mean, how do you miscalculate that? And you run out of gas on the backstretch when you're just about ready to call him in, or maybe you missed it 1 lap short. It's unfortunate because if they'd gotten a caution, they could have had the pace to get up there and pass some of those guys and race William Byron, but we'll never know, unfortunately. Now he faces must-win at Daytona next week. And number 5, McDowell, from triumph a week ago to failure yesterday. I mean, it was just an absolutely apparent performance from the 34 team of McDowell. From winning last weekend at Indianapolis Road Course where he had the dominant car, he came into this weekend with so much confidence. In the early part of the race yesterday, he had one of the best cars. He got up there, took the lead from William Byron and Denny Hamlin, and started driving off. But then Byron started to pick up the pace a little bit and catch back up to him. McDowell was able to stay out and win stage 1, which is his second stage win of the season. Of course, he won back-to-back stages. And for the first time ever, McDowell has had a moment where he's led back-to-back races about more than 5 laps, which has never happened in his entire career. I don't think he's ever had a span where he's led back-to-back races. It's never happened to him, but this time it happened to him, and he seemed to have one of the best cars until the first pit stop of the day. Comes in, nice stop, leaves. He gets penalized for driving through too many pit boxes. How do you miscalculate how many pit boxes you're driving through? But ultimately, he pitted and served his penalty, but then he was starting to work his way back up there, and then on the second pit stop, he got caught for crew member going over the wall too soon, and that definitely took him out of contention. But despite all that, when that caution came out, he was able to drive himself in the top 10, and the thought was, you get another caution, McDowell's back in the game. But all that went south late in the race with about 15 laps to go. The motor died. Well, it technically shut off. It didn't technically die. It just shut off. And, I mean, they didn't blow the engine. It just died. Shut off. Excuse me. And ultimately, that relegated McDowell to a last place finish yesterday, but he still was able to hold a smile because when you win last weekend, it obviously keeps the day that you had yesterday a little bit brighter, knowing better to have that happen this week than it did last week, or else we wouldn't be talking about Michael McDowell winning a race and being in the playoffs. But he had a great weekend last weekend, winning that race at the road course in Indianapolis, but this weekend at the Glen, not the best day, especially with the penalties and the engine fading late in the race. And after the conclusion of yesterday's race, we can officially congratulate Brad Keselowski and Kevin Harvick. They are officially in the playoffs by clinching on points. If we had a new winner yesterday, that could have been Ty Gibbs, AJ Allmendinger, maybe Chase Elliott, or somebody else, then Harvick and Keselowski would have been in a dogfight at Daytona for the final two spots on points, or this will be final spot in case somebody got a victory and knocked one of the two out of the playoffs. But with Byron winning yesterday, Keselowski and Harvick had a comfortable enough cushion on points with just one race left and one spot available. They're both locked into the playoffs. So Brad Keselowski, to get both of his cars in the playoffs in his second year as a driver/co-owner at RFK, to get him and Chris Buescher in the playoffs, unbelievable. And there's no doubt in my mind that Brad Keselowski can win next weekend's race and give him some confidence heading into the playoffs. And of course, everybody, and I'm sure most of the fans, would have obviously wanted Kevin Harvick in the playoffs in his final year. Despite a rough patch in the summer, road course-wise, the other tracks Harvick's been really good at. He's been a top 5, top 10 car, but on road courses, they have not been on their A game at all whatsoever. But both of them are in the playoffs, and they're going to be racing for a championship when we get ready to start the playoffs at Darlington. So, good job by Harvick and Keselowski. You guys get to race for a title. 2014 champ, 2012 champ. They'll be going for their second title each. And now, with all that being said, next weekend, this upcoming Saturday night, is the final race of the regular season. And what better way to finish it off than under the lights at the World Center of Racing in Daytona, baby. The Coke Zero Sugar 400 should be quite a ball. We've got 39 cars entered for this race. Obviously, 15 drivers know they're in the playoffs and they're just going to go out and have some fun. But as for the other 17 drivers that are still playoff eligible, they're going to be in a dogfight to get that last spot that Bubba Wallace currently occupies. Despite the 12th place finish yesterday, Bubba Wallace has a comfortable 32-point cushion over 17th. But if somebody were to win next weekend, that is a new winner, and it is not Bubba, he's out of the playoffs. Anybody can win next weekend. The guys are going to be hunting him hard next weekend, include Ty Gibbs, Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, AJ Allmendinger, Daniel Suarez, Austin Cindric, Austin Dillon, last year's winner, Chase Briscoe, Harrison Burton, Eric Almirola, Justin Haley, Eric Jones. The list goes on and on and on. Everybody's going to be in a dogfight this upcoming Saturday night to be the first one across the checkered flag to lock their spot into the playoffs. Who will emerge on top? Will Bubba Wallace remain in the playoffs? Or will he find himself on the outside at the conclusion of 400 miles under the lights at Daytona next upcoming Saturday night? I don't know what to expect, but it should be quite a banger, and I cannot wait for this race. It should be entertaining. It'll have you on the edge of your seat, folks. It's going to be chaos. So I hope you all have a wonderful week and get excited for this upcoming Saturday night's race. Subscribe, like, and once again, congrats to William Byron and the 24 team on their impressive win at the Glen yesterday. Have a great week, everybody. Let's go racing!